talk to me today
Sure.
about automatic license plate readers. First off, how long have they been up in Shenandoah County?
We have two different systems. We have an Axon system and we have a Flock system, okay? So Flock, I would say it's only like the last couple of years. Axon was a few years prior to that,
Okay.
okay? And both are different. If you want, I could go into the details about them.
Yeah.
It might be helpful to do that.
Yeah, walk me through the different uses or the different applications between
Okay.
those two.
Can I first go into what happens when you report
Sure.
information?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say that you report your vehicle stolen. All right. What happens at that point is a police report is taken. The information about your vehicle is included in the report, and your vehicle is then entered as stolen. Okay. Now, when I talk about being entered, I'm talking about it's entered into what's called the Virginia Criminal Information Network, VCIN. Okay. So it's entered into VCIN as stolen. Now, this can also be done for other things, for like wanted people, missing children, missing people, other stolen property, but let's just keep it to license plates and vehicles at this point. So that's what happens. Now, VCIN is interconnected with a system called NCIC. NCIC is the National Criminal Information Center, okay? Now, NCIC is basically a national center, national database that's managed by an organization that falls within the Federal Bureau of Investigation, okay? So now your vehicle is entered into VCIN as stolen, and it's in the NCIC database as stolen. That means, for example, if your license plate is run in, pick an area, North Carolina, it would come up as being this is a stolen vehicle from Virginia. And it had certain information in there too about it. So, for example, when we enter this with regard to VCIN and NCIC, we would enter the license plate, the VIN number as part of that, the type of vehicle, your information. All that information is entered, okay? And that's what the system contains. Now, so these things are happening all over the country right now. A myriad of things are happening, missing people, stolen property, stolen cars, what have you. And it's all going into these local or state databases and then going into the federal database. So what happens with these automatic license plate readers and these companies is they have a relationship with that database at the national level, okay? So like, for example, again, we have Axon and we have Flock. So let's talk a little bit about Axon. The Axon systems that we have now, we have 27 active automatic license plate readers on vehicles, on patrol vehicles, okay? So what's happening is every time those officers are passing a car or behind a car or even driving through a parking lot of a hotel or a Walmart parking lot or something like that, the Axon camera system is taking an image of the vehicle, and particularly the vehicle's license plate, and then it's basically translating what that image is into a file, and that file then is being cross-referenced with everything that's in NCIC, okay? So, for example, in Axon, I believe it's every 6 hours they are updating that system, the company is. So in other words, when we started this, I think it's like once a day it was happening, maybe like every night at 3 a.m. or something like that, but now it's coming more and more frequent. And so they're basically getting this information as it's been uploaded and it's been taken out. And then it takes that image and it tries to match up with what's been entered. So for example, if your license plate is ABC 123 Virginia, that should be in the NCIC system because you've been entered, and it should match up because now you've taken that photograph and that image then is cross-referenced with that data. So the officer would then know, this officer who's driving the sheriff's office patrol vehicle would now know I'm behind a vehicle that's potentially stolen. There has to be a verification process with regard to whether that vehicle stopped. So from that perspective, the officer would then contact our emergency communication center. They then verify that the vehicle is still stolen. And the officer also would look at what's come up on their screen as far as the imagery to get, for example, let's say ABC 123 Virginia, but the image on the screen is ABC 123, I don't know, Vermont, VT or something like that, whatever it could be. There has to be this verification process before that officer can act on that alert. Okay? So once they verify that through dispatch or the emergency communications center, that's when they would initiate the stop and then start more into the investigation process. Okay? So that's pretty much what's happening with Axon. They're on vehicles, looking at vehicles as those deputies are patrolling the county. Flock, now we have, let's see, 4 stationary flock camera systems, and we have 3 mobile flock camera systems, okay? Our stationary camera systems, let's see, there's 2 in the Edinburgh area, there's 1 in Tom's Brook, and there's 1 west of Woodstock on 42. So that's where ours are. Now, each town in Shenandoah County, in my understanding, every town in Shenandoah County has those systems within the town. So you have to ask them about how many cameras they have and locations and that kind of thing. But we have 4 stationary and 3 mobile. The flock system is doing the same thing, except it's taking an image as a vehicle drives by. Okay? So just like the deputy who's driving the car with Axon is driving by your car and the photograph is being taken, the flock system that's there stationary would be taking the photograph as you drive by. Okay? And again, it's getting the image, and that image then is going into this database, and it's trying to marry up the image that it has with the information in the database to see if this is a vehicle that is stolen, or this vehicle was entered because this person is a senior with dementia that's like a silver alert kind of thing, okay? And there's this welfare check for this person. And it's the difference between flock and Axon is in the flock scenario, there's no deputy there. In other words, with Axon, the system we have at this point, there's actually a deputy there in the car that's observing this vehicle. Or maybe it passed it and it's turned around or what have you, but there's a deputy in the vicinity, whereas flock, it would be just a vehicle driving by, and there may not be a deputy for miles in that particular incident. So that's how the 2 systems work. A couple of things I did want to get to because I see it a lot, and I'm not going to try to change people's opinions about this. That's not the point of me explaining what I'm explaining. This is a tool that we're using. There are constraints on the tool that we have. Some are legislative constraints, and some are constraints internal to the agency. And if we misuse this system, we're committing a crime, quite frankly. But I realize that there are certain people that have opinions that differ from mine on this. But what I do see from time to time, and I think a lot of it's from social media, quite frankly, is these statements and that are put out about law enforcement is tracking me. I see that word tracking a lot. And the reality is if we were tracking you, we'd be violating the law by using these systems. That's not what the purpose of the systems are. When we run your license plate, for example, now, let's say you're pulled over for any minor infraction, and the law enforcement officer runs your tag or checks your tag through VSIN, that has to be done for a criminal justice purpose. It can't be done simply because we want to know who you are, and that's not. It has to be done for a criminal justice purpose. Otherwise, you're breaching the system. You're committing a crime. Same thing happens with the automatic license plate readers, Axon or Flock. You have to be engaged in an investigation of some type to be actually trying to identify who owns that tag. And the other thing I think that people believe is that when you go through the system that it's automatically running your tag. And that's not true at all. It's not true. It's taking a photograph, it's taking an image, and it's keeping that image. In our particular case, it's 21 days. And those images are kept for 21 days, which is by statute what they can be kept for. And then they're automatically purging after 21 days. But it's not running your tag, which I think a lot of people think that.
Right.
So they're not.
Teasing out the differences again between Axon and Flock. So if I understood what you were saying about Axon, as that camera mounted onto the W's vehicle is taking a picture of the license plate, and however often their database updates, it's checking all of those images, the license plate number that it reads from those images, and it's cross-checking that with the NCIC database, and it's going to send like an alert basically to that W. Say, hey, this pinged for this stolen vehicle. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, are the Flock cameras doing that same kind of cross-checking process as well?
They are. They give us an alert. The difference is, again, with Axon, we have a person in the car that's usually with that vehicle.
Confirming it in real time.
Whereas with Flock, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just sending out an alert that a reported stolen vehicle went by this location, and then we would have to then verify, was that the vehicle, or can we even find the vehicle at that point?
Are stolen vehicles one of the most common uses for this? Are there other kinds of investigations that?
No, what's happening from our position, quite honestly, it's not stolen vehicles, it's other crimes or other uses, maybe a missing person or something like that. We had an incident this past summer where we had a reported abduction, and during that time, we were taking the information that we were given from the victim and the victim's family and trying to cross-reference that with the systems that we have in place. And we were not able to develop any solid suspects in that case, but that's what we're seeing we're using it more for. We've had, I can think of one right off the top of my head of a senior citizen who was reported from his family that he was in medical distress, and we were trying to use that system to see if we could not locate him, or at least where he had been. So that's what we're using it for more than anything at this point.
I know when the last time I came up here during your last campaign for sheriff, we had talked about how you wanted to make progress with the agency in adopting more technology for public safety. Is this part of that broader trajectory?
I think so, yes. Yeah. I mean, I've done this for a long time, and we did not have these tools early on in my career. Again, I can see why people would take the position that they're uncomfortable with it or they don't like the technology, but the technology is there. And the technology is useful. It does help with regard to helping us develop a case that we would not have had that capability with if we didn't have that technology. And with regard to, I can't stress enough, with the way the system is, if it's being abused, as in some of what I see people say it's being abused with, those are violations of law. and people will be held accountable with regard to that. But I think it's a technology that is useful, and yeah.
On those, the critiques that I've heard about privacy concerns, one of the arguments that I've heard is that, well, there's all sorts of location data from our cell phones, but typically law enforcement will have to get a search warrant, correct, to obtain that detailed location data. And so it's like, okay, if you need a search warrant for that, how is this not on that same level of you would need a search warrant, you would need a more check and balances to sign off on law enforcement accessing this location specific data?
Well, okay, it's my understanding it's a privilege to operate a motor vehicle on the highways of the Commonwealth. So it's a privilege to be issued an operator's license. That's a privilege. To be issued a license plate for your car, it's still owned, I believe it's still owned by the state, by the Commonwealth. So the question becomes, what's the expectation of privacy if you're on a public road, you're operating a motor vehicle, and your photograph's taken? That's the issue. And at this point, courts that I'm aware of haven't ruled that that's a violation of privacy. Now, searching the vehicle and going further steps with regard to an investigation and the requirements that you might need for search warrants and that kind of thing in those investigations, certainly. But in the scenario that I've given you, it's basically taking a photograph of a person on a public highway who's there by privilege. Okay? And courts have to decide if that's an invasion of privacy. Okay?
Another concern that I wanted to run by you is the security of the data itself. Where is it being stored? How can the community trust these private companies to have a cybersecurity in place where this is not vulnerable to hackers or some sort of bad actor?
Well, and you're right. Even though we own the data, we don't store the data. The data is basically kept by the company. The company, I guess statutorily, you could go and say a company that's involved and engaged in this in the Commonwealth of Virginia has to show these certain safeguards with regard to the data. And I think that would be a problem for the company if they were hacked or they were giving the data to an entity that wasn't part of that agreement, if you will. With regard to Virginia, like for example, our data in the Commonwealth is shared only in Virginia. It's not shared outside of Virginia. But there's some states where their data is shared inside the state and outside the state. So really those things are statutes that have to be enacted by the legislation of the state or Commonwealth. And again, I go back to, the company would have to answer questions with regard to if data was breached and used for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, I know there are a number of regulations that went into effect last year, I think last summer, about how this data can be used, how long it can be stored, has to be, like a suspected violation of, state or local ordinance, missing persons, human trafficking cases, things like that. That law that went into effect with all of those regulations, do you think of those as helpful or appropriate guidelines? Are they too restrictive? What's your thought on that?
Well, my take on it, I think, again, I've been around Virginia law enforcement for a long time, and I think Virginia law enforcement, whether it's at the state level, local level, they're used to guardrails, safeguards, criteria that has to be met with regard to use of information or, those types of things. So from my perspective, it was, here's the technology and here are the parameters that you have to follow to use the technology. I don't have any problems with that at all. And I don't think most agencies have any problems. I've not heard agencies that have a problem with that. I mean, I think law enforcement in the Commonwealth of Virginia is like, okay, these are the rules. We play by the rules, and let's move on. Now, again, if the state wanted to be more restrictive or wanted to change the statute in a different way, then we'd just have to adjust if we're going to engage in that technology. So, and we've adapted at this point.
Yeah, yeah. You're used to getting state regulations that
Right,
you have to
yeah,
follow about
yeah. I
everything.
don't think that's not new in law enforcement.
Yeah. Well, I think this is, that was all the questions that I had to ask you on this topic. Is there anything else that you want our listeners or your viewers to know about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I want to go back to, I'm very in tune with people's privacy and their concerns about that. And just give them that assurance. We're using this technology to provide and enhance public safety in Shenandoah County. And if we misuse this technology, there are criminal ramifications for that. And we are not using it to track your habits or where you've been here or there. That would be a violation if we were doing that. I don't know of any agency that's doing that, quite honestly. All of the agencies and all of the information that I have regionally and throughout the Commonwealth is people are using the data to further an investigation for criminal justice purposes, and I think that's what's happening. But I do understand it's new technology, and I understand the concerns about it. Yeah, yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I just, yeah, everything I've seen on it, it's just been this, you know, when you think, well, there is one thing, like, for example, when we're dealing with like a potential abduction or a missing child or a missing person, some of these things that we're dealing with are very time sensitive. So, yes, we're in constant communication with people and we're in constant visual contact with people, but also when we're dealing with an incident and we can use a piece of technology that can give us leads and information to the whereabouts, for example, of someone who is in medical distress, time is of the essence. And again, as long as we're working within the parameters of the statute and using it for criminal justice purposes, then we're okay. Okay? So I did want to bring that up.
No, that's a good point about timeliness,
Yeah.
like both with, like you're saying, you give the example of, you know, like a silver alert or an abduction, whether it's, you know, it could be medical, someone's going to harm, you know, experience harm, you know, just by themselves, or someone is trying to harm and abscond with them.
Right. I mean, what we see, again, this goes back to just general law enforcement. What we see a lot of times with regard to reporting of crimes is the public is, you know, when we're reporting a crime or criminal activity, they want, if they can get it, photographic evidence or recorded evidence or imagery, I should say, not evidence, but imagery, so that it can help them help us. So does, you know, again, does that deter crime? I don't know. I tell deputies all the time, be mindful, you're probably being recorded in some fashion, wherever you're at, whether you're at a store, whether you're out here on the street, or whether you're in someone's home, to be mindful of that. And I think there's an understanding from the public that they realize wherever they go, for the most part, systems are like this, whether it's in a convenience store or a bank or a school or maybe even a neighborhood watch area that a private organization has initiated, that there are camera systems there. Then does that deter crime? I can't give you statistics on that. Does that help? I would think if I were a criminal and I had a business that had no security versus a business that had security, it would make me rethink which one I'm going to try to commit a crime at. But that's kind of where my head is with that, okay?
Yeah, yeah, any public space is
Yeah.
kind of up for
But
grabs for being recorded.
yeah, and I mean, going back to ours are at public spaces. It's not like we're using them on private property.
Right.
They're in a place where you're driving on a public highway. So when you work on like in a search and rescue mission, you start at the point last seen, you just start working out. And that's how a search is done. With regard to people that are maybe mobile in a vehicle, or potentially been picked up by a vehicle, having the knowledge that they're not here, they're in this town, or at least the vehicle they're supposed to be in is in this town, helps you direct those resources there quicker than just sitting here with concentric circles going around and around and around trying to find them there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it does help with staffing.
Yeah, especially, I mean, when you have like these two main arteries of the valley, 81 and 11, you know, running the length of your
Right.
jurisdiction.
Right. Okay. All right, so we're good?
Anything else that you want to add on this topic?
No, I think we're good.